London has long been one of the most important cities in the world of darkness, ruled for centuries by the Ventrue elder Mithras, a vampire so ancient that his influence stretched back to the days of the Roman Empire. Known as the Prince of London, Mithras turned the city into his personal domain, establishing his own blood laws, secret cults, and rigid hierarchy that shaped the lives of kindred across Britain. He had arrived with the Roman armies in the 1st century, conquering Londinium and setting it apart as his capital. Over the centuries, Mithras created what were essentially Mithraic cults, small, secretive circles of vampires and mortal followers who worshipped him. He wrote his own set of laws long before the Camarilla came into existence, establishing strict rules about who could reside in London and under what conditions. Other vampires could live in Britain only if they accepted his authority, and so he ruled with an iron fist. While he often slipped into periods of torpor, his cults kept the city in check during his slumber, enforcing his blood laws and maintaining his influence. Mithras's rule was marked by feuds and conflicts. He despised both the Toreador and the Tremere, primarily because these clans often meddled in English affairs. In the 17th century, after decades of tension, he compelled the Toreador to sign the Treaty of Durham, a pact of mutual non-interference that secured his dominance. Throughout the ages, he watched the development of the Camarilla, but never truly joined it. He preferred to operate independently, though his interests often aligned with those of the broader sect. Still, he welcomed alliances and accepted contributions from clan leaders when it suited him. During the 18th and 19th centuries, Mithras left London in the hands of his trusted elder, Valerius, while he traveled. Valerius presided over the city in his absence, even receiving Mithras's official seal to act on his behalf. During this period, Valerius aligned the city more closely with the Camarilla and envisioned London as the heart of a unified British domain. When Mithras returned near the end of the 19th century, he was furious with the changes. In a fit of anger, he stripped Valerius of his title and promoted Valerius's child, Lady Anne Bolesley, to seneschal, effectively positioning her as his right hand. Around the same time, a Setite Methuselah named Kementiri, posing as Lady Ophelia Merritt, infiltrated London. Her plots and a rogue Tremere sect briefly drove Mithras into madness. With the help of a loyal Tremere, Victoria Ashe, the conspiracy was thwarted. In response, Mithras banished the Setites from London permanently. This humiliation sparked hatred in Valerius, and he hatched a plan to destroy his sire. The opportunity came during the chaos of the Second World War. In 1940, Valerius and Mithras's former spymaster, Richard de Ward, discovered that the mysterious Pater Thomas, a leader in Mithras's cult, was actually Mithras's lover, Roger de Camden, masquerading as someone else. They kidnapped de Camden and lured Mithras to the royal gunpowder mills near Waltham Abbey, using de Camden as bait. Once Mithras arrived, Valerius triggered a massive explosion. It was powerful enough to blow the roof off a nearby church. As far as anyone could tell, Mithras and de Camden were destroyed. Valerius waited months to confirm the deed and then confessed his plot to Lady Anne. She accepted the news quietly and declared Mithras dead, blaming the bombing on the London Blitz. Lady Anne then seized control of London and styled herself as Queen Anne, promoting Valerius to seneschal. Unknown to either of them, Mithras survived. While he was mortally wounded, his supernatural resilience allowed him to crawl away from the carnage. He reached the woods of Epping Forest, where he succumbed to torpor. Roger de Camden, who had only been staked, freed himself and slipped into the Shadowlands, a ghostly realm where spirits dwell. For decades, de Camden lay low, knowing that as long as Valerius ruled, he was not safe. In his absence, the Mithraic cult diminished. Their secret cells lost touch with one another, and London fell into a more common pattern of Camarilla politics. Queen Anne held court, doling out power to the Primogen and hearing the grievances of her subjects. The Ventrue and Toreador resumed their feuds, and the Tremere were tolerated only because the Camarilla demanded it. The Setites remained banished. Despite its chaos, London was still a thriving domain, home to over 200 kindred around the dawn of the new millennium. Half a century after the attempted assassination, de Camden sought help from a Sabbat pack, led by a harbinger of skulls named Alcuin. He revealed that Mithras might still be buried in Epping Forest, and enlisted the Sabbat's help to dig him up. The Sabbat pack found the torpid Methuselah, but as they attempted to recover him, they were attacked by werewolves. Most of the Sabbat died in the clash. The only survivor was a young vampire named Montgomery Monty Coven. A Banu Hakim, exhausted and starving, Monty succumbed to his predatory instincts and committed diablerie on Mithras in an attempt to consume the elder soul. But Mithras's will was much stronger than Monty's. Instead of dying, the Methuselah took control of Monty's body. While inhabiting Monty's body, Mithras rebuilt his strength and influence in secret. He integrated himself into the Sabbat, hunting werewolves and anarchs to build a reputation. Eventually, he reconnected with Roger de Camden. De Camden reminded him of the ritual of transferring the soul, a complex blood magic and necromancy ritual that could give Mithras full control over the body he inhabited. The catch was that they needed objects imbued with Mithras's essence, items he had cherished or used in significant rituals. Mithras had never formally prepared such artifacts, but de Camden identified 5 items that might hold enough of his essence to serve. A ceramic goblet used in countless ceremonies, a ceremonial Phrygian cap worn during special occasions, an ancient seal of Avalon, once wielded by Valerius, a ruby ring inscribed with a curse and blessing, gifted by Kementiri, and an Egyptian dagger used by Mithras to ritually slay bulls. To reclaim these items, Mithras needed loyal agents. For centuries, the cult of Mithras practiced a blood ritual called the blooding, similar to the Sabbat's Valderie. Volunteers would bathe in a mix of blood donated by cult members, linking their spirits to Mithras and wiping away their own identities. Those who underwent this ritual became heralds of the sun, fanatically loyal warriors who would do anything for their god. They were eventually put into a state of torpor and buried beneath Walbrook Square so that they might awaken when Mithras needed them. During the Blitz, these herald sarcophagi were buried and forgotten. But in 2012, construction workers building the new Bloomberg headquarters unearthed the sarcophagi. Roger de Camden, still posing as Pater Thomas, awakened the heralds and explained their mission: recover the 5 artifacts so Mithras could fully regain his power. London at that time was a thriving yet fragile domain. Although there were more than 200 vampires, it was easy to disappear among the mortals. The city maintained an official resident list. Anyone not registered was considered unprotected and could be hunted with impunity. The court, led by Queen Anne, met on full moons to discuss matters of importance. Yet power had shifted since she took the throne. With increasing numbers of vampires, the Primogen and the baronies gained more autonomy. Queen Anne knew she could not rule everything directly, so she granted more independence to influential barons in cities like Manchester and Birmingham, as long as they upheld the traditions. Rivalries persisted. The Ventrue nursed grudges against the French and Scottish Toreador, and although the Tremere were no longer actively hated, they remained distrusted. Certain parts of London were anarch strongholds, like Southwark and Brixton. Other areas, such as the City of London and Richmond Park, were off-limits because of lupine threats. Meanwhile, the Setites remained banished, and the ministry was unwelcome. At the dawn of the modern era, mortal authorities started noticing unusual activities. A group of officials and intelligence officers known as the Newburgh Group, led by Detective Inspector Isaac Khan, a devout and disciplined police officer, received a dossier that identified high-profile vampires. No one knew it at the time, but Mithras himself had anonymously delivered the documents, hoping to use mortal hunters against his enemies. Khan's determination to protect London from this invisible menace led to the formation of Operation Antigen, a secret mission designed to eradicate vampires. Khan's team included Lieutenant Paul Richards and Sergeant Gabrielle Ellis, members of an Emergency Counter-Terror Unit, ECTU. Together, they were trained to handle so-called IC-0 threats, mortals with extraordinary resilience or unnatural abilities. Their basic principle was to treat vampires as an infection to be removed. Operation Antigen did not strike all at once. It escalated in stages. At first, Khan and his associates investigated corruption and gathered information, targeting low-level suspects on the fringes of society. As their confidence grew, the operation expanded surveillance, tapping phones and hacking into CCTV systems. The task force began raiding havens of less influential vampires, using warrants on flimsy pretexts. As the threat seemed more credible, they adopted sophisticated monitoring techniques with the help of GCHQ, cloning mobile phones and tracking movements in real time. Armed police were stationed at transportation hubs. Vampires found it harder to feed or move around, and many discovered that the Nosferatu's online network, ShrekNet, had been infiltrated. Queen Anne's court dissolved when she realized the scale of the threat. There was no safe place to meet, no way to summon her people without alerting Antigen. Vampires fled London in droves. Those who stayed went underground, literally in many cases, avoiding public transport, phones, or electronic communication. As Antigen tightened its grip, it set up checkpoints at airports and train stations, eventually controlling the entire city's infrastructure. The operation reached a point where it declared London free of vampires, though a few kindred remained hidden. This was the chaotic backdrop in which the Heralds of the Sun began their quest. Their first mission took them to an old warehouse, where they were given blood to break their fast and told their identities had been overwritten by a ritual. They began to experience flashes of personalities not their own, memories belonging to the vampires whose blood had been mixed during the blooding. As they ventured through London, they navigated a city under siege, reclaiming artifacts from rival factions, infiltrating tunnels, attending the last gasp of aristocratic revelry, and negotiating with those who might betray them. One event loomed large: Queen Anne's final party held at the Shard, the soaring glass tower that symbolized Ventrue power. That celebration turned into a massacre when Operation Antigen stormed the building. The raid signaled the beginning of the end. Whether the heralds recovered the artifacts depended on the choices made in the story, but the raid set London ablaze. Queen Anne vanished, some say to recover her strength under the protection of a Camarilla justiciar, while Tremere and Bruja leaders formed uneasy alliances in the chaos. The city descended into a patchwork of fiefs. The aftermath of the fall of London was bleak. Operation Antigen boasted that London was free of vampires, but this was an exaggeration. In truth, a handful of kindred remained, mostly Thinbloods, Toreador, and Nosferatu, and a few elders hiding in the shadows. Those who stayed behind realized they needed a new way to survive. Around 2019, the surviving vampires, called landlords, convened with the powerful Nosferatu, known as the King of Shadows. They struck an accord called the Compact, an agreement born of necessity. According to the Compact, no vampire would use public transportation. Airports, trains, and buses were too risky, as they were always under surveillance. They agreed not to use phones or computers because electronic communications had become death traps. They abandoned the idea of an Elysium, those neutral gathering places where disputes could be settled. Because any congregation could draw Antigen's attention. Most significantly, they refused to appoint a new prince. Instead, each landlord governed their own domain, acknowledging each other's sovereignty and offering aid only when absolutely necessary. This arrangement preserved some semblance of society without central authority. By the mid-2020s, London had become a shadow of the once great Kindred stronghold. The throne remained empty. Those who survived did so by staying under the radar, living in scattered strongholds throughout the city. Because Mithras had been the one to tip off the Second Inquisition about London's vampires, it proved difficult for similar operations to replicate Antigen elsewhere. Other domains were now on guard. Across Britain, Arryns began to call themselves princes, and the structure of kindred society changed. The fall of London became a cautionary tale about the dangers of ancient grudges and the perils of underestimating mortal hunters. Whether Mithras ultimately regained his full power or was finally destroyed depends on the choices made during the chronicle. But his machinations were pivotal in creating the disaster. The story of the fall of London illustrates the core themes of the world of darkness: the arrogance of elder vampires, the fragility of their secret world, and the relentless danger posed by human authorities when the Masquerade begins to crumble. What do you think really doomed London? Mithras's pride, the Second Inquisition, or something darker? Drop your theories in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into Vampire the Masquerade lore.